This morning we're going to continue to look in Ephesians chapter 4. We're still on the change of the mind. Still on the change of the mind. We're going to be looking at verse, let's see, what is it? Verse 19. There we go. We're going to be looking at verse 19 this morning. So, if you will turn there, but before we get started, let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I just come forward right now. Lord, I just want to thank you. And Lord, I just want to praise you for the day that you've given to us. Lord, just thank you for the time that we're able to come together and just to be able to serve you, to be able to worship you, and to be able to glorify you as the body of Christ. Lord, thank you for that. Lord, I just pray that that's what we're here for. That's what we're about. That's why we have gathered here today, is to glorify and to honor you and all that we do. Lord, let everything that is said, let everything that is done glorify and honor you. Lord, I just pray that this morning that we just continuously seek after you and to seek you and all that we do. Lord, I pray this morning that this is a message that is for your people at this time. Lord, let it not be anything of me, but Lord, let it be all of you. Lord, I just pray that you just give me the words that your people need to hear. Lord, just let me be the instrument that you have. Lord, help me to know that's what I'm going to be used for, is to be your instrument in everything, and all that is said and all that is said in my life. Lord, I just pray for those who aren't here with us this morning, whether they're sick, whether they're traveling, whether they're working, whatever they're doing, Lord. Lord, I just pray that you just be with them. Lord, you just strengthen them. Lord, you just help in whatever way that they need. Because, Lord, you need to be evident in their life. Lord, I just pray that you can just help heal them. Lord, that you can just help them be able to get through today in whatever capacity that. Lord, help us to know. Help us to be aware of the things and the relationships that we have with them. Lord, help us to be able to see those things. Lord, we love you. Lord, we praise you in all things. Amen. This morning we're going to be talking about the change of mind, and we're going to continue with that this morning. And the thing of it is, you get into this scripture, and it's kind of different. It goes along with all the way that the world's mind is, the fruitlessness, the useful. It's not useful. There's nothing good about it. It's bad. It's horrible. There's nothing that brings good thoughts. And if you don't have good thoughts, you don't have good lives. And if you have a hardened heart that's callous because you continuously and willfully are ignorant about things and you don't want to know about God, you want to push Him away, then things continuously happen. As we look in verse 19 this morning of Ephesians chapter 4, we're going to look at that. We're going to see that. We're going to see what happens when you just continuously push God away. When you let those things that are just fruitless and just useless just continuously enter your mind because it's dark. We see what happens. In church, it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing is what is out in the world. But there's one thing we need to remember. We were once just like them. We were once living in darkness, just like the rest of the world. So before we begin, I've got this story about this little boy. He was one of my friends, little boy. His name was Bubba, okay? Listen, this was East Texas. Bubba, that's a good name right there, Bubba. And so, this little boy, he was like a lot of little boys, and he's in his 20s now, but this was, 12 years ago or so. He was running around, being 11 years old, And you're talking about country. You don't see kids these days like this. This boy was country. His parents would get phone calls from the school because he refused to put shoes on. Okay? Bubba did not like to wear shoes. Everywhere that boy went, he didn't have a pair of shoes on ever. He'd come over to the house with his daddy, not a pair of shoes on, no socks. They weren't even in the truck. It wasn't even an afterthought. Oops, I forgot my shoes. He just ran around with no shoes on all the time. Now, kids these days, they'll go run around, in the house and stuff. They don't go out in the yard. Oh no, there's stickers and stuff. Bubba didn't care. Okay? Bubba, you could find Bubba running through the pastures, running through the woods. It didn't matter if it was 16 degrees outside. Bubba didn't have any shoes on. Okay? It didn't matter. This boy hated shoes. Now, from the things that I've seen now, I'm talking to his daddy and stuff, he does wear shoes now. Okay? I think he finally got a girlfriend and figured out girls, and so he decided, yeah, I might want to wear some shoes. But he never wore shoes. I mean, you could go out and do anything, and he would be traipsing through the woods and through the briars and through the brush. It didn't matter. This boy would go anywhere and everywhere without shoes. Well, the thing of it is, like most of you, some of you, when you were younger, y'all didn't wear shoes either, right? And so your feet get real hard. They get real callous. They get real thick soles and stuff. It's like having a pair of shoes on, right? Well, his daddy told me one day that he was on the couch, and they were watching TV, and Bubba had fallen asleep. And Bubba had fallen asleep with his feet in his daddy's lap. Well, his daddy got to looking down there one day and looked at his feet. He saw something in his foot. He's like, oh, there's something in his foot. So he just took out his pocket and started digging and digging and digging. And what Bubba had in his foot was a thorn that was 1.5 inches long in his foot. And the thing of it is, skin had grown over the top of this thorn. He didn't even know. His feet were so tough and so callous that 1.5 inches thick thorn was up in this boy's foot. And it wasn't bothering him a lick. He was still running and gunning and going and doing and playing and hooping and hollering and doing everything that he had always done. He got calloused. He got that thick skin. And there was something that was harmful in his foot that could have caused infection, could have caused a bunch of different things. And his daddy was like, there's no way in the world that I don't see how he didn't get an infection, how he didn't feel it, how he didn't even know it was there. But he didn't. He said it left a massive hole in it when it got dug out. Callous. To be that callous. So let's read in Ephesians chapter 4, we'll start in verse 17 again. We'll continue with that. It says, therefore I say this and testify in the Lord, you should no longer walk as the Gentiles walk in the futility of their thoughts. They are darkened in their understanding, excluded from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them, because of the hardness of their hearts. They became callous and gave themselves over to promiscuity for the practice of every kind of impurity with a desire for more and more. Verse 20 says this, but that is not how you learned about the Messiah. You see, in verse 19, because of the things that had gone on in their lives, they weren't walking with God. They were walking in the futility of their mind, the uselessness of their thoughts. Their minds have become darkened in the understanding of God, and they were excluded from the life that He has to give them. They become hardened because they willfully pushed God back and willfully pushed God back. They didn't want to know about their sin. They didn't want to know about God. And you know what? They became callous. You see that word right there is like that. That's in the Greek. That's what it is. It's that callous. It's that thickening of skin. It's that unfeeling. I'm sorry if I stepped on a thorn that was 1.5 inches long. I would feel it. There would be pain. You see, because of the fruitlessness of their minds, because of the futility of their minds and the darkening of their thoughts and their understanding of God, They no longer felt the pain of sin. They no longer felt the pain or the hurts that sin in their life brought to them. They didn't know. They didn't understand. Just like Bubba, he didn't know it was there, and so therefore he went on with his life, just as if he had nothing wrong with it. That callousness there. You see, it's not even just like callous. It's not even to that point, because calluses can be worn away. Calluses can go away. You can sit there and scrub them off, cut them down to where it's soft tissue again. But see, the callousness that the Gentiles had here, the Ephesians had, was like this. It's like having leprosy. If you think about that, it's not just having thick skin. It's having leprosy, where there is a disease that is eating at your body, that the nerve endings are dead. You think about this, you've heard stories about leprosy, how people will sit there and do things. They'll burn themselves and they won't know it. They'll sit there and cut themselves and they'll bleed and they have no feeling in their hands or any appendage which that disease attacks. In their face, their ears, their feet, legs, whatever it is attacking at that point in time in their body, they have no feeling to it. Can you imagine what it would be like you're talking to somebody in your house and you lean up against the stove and not to feel the heat from the stove burning? Or you are cutting up something and you cut your hand and you don't know and it's just bleeding everywhere and you can't feel it. Even to the point of you slam your hand into a car door and there's no feeling there. You see, we would react to that. We have the sensitivity to react to that. There's not a disease that has taken over and caused us not to feel like that. The physical pain would be horrible. To set your hand on a stove and have the flesh burning like that would hurt. Or to cut your hand, even, listen, we sit there and whine and cry about paper cuts. Oh, that hurts. Those little bitty tiny cuts. They're not even detrimental to you. I can remember shutting my hand in the car doors when I was a kid. I don't think kids do that as much. I guess they make cars safer. I don't know. But you think about it. I used to slam my hand in the car door and it would hurt. And not to know that. You see, that's what sin does to the world, church. Sin has caused the world and the people of this world to be blinded by the things, and it's made them insensitive to the sin that is in their life. Oh, it's just gotten thickened. They don't feel the pain. They don't feel anything. There is no remorse. There is no, oh, I shouldn't have done. It's just a continuation. Why? Because they don't feel it. They just go on, and the pain is not there. And you think about what that does to your physical body when you cut it, you burn it, you slam your hand in a car door, anything like that. You look at the physical pain that does to our life, to our bodies, and you think about the world, what the sin in their life does to their spirit and their spiritual life. That callousness. Callousness. But church, you've got to remember, we were once there. We were once just like them. Church, we can't ever forget that we were once that callous against God. That we just sinned and it didn't bother us. We would sin and we just went on with our lives. Thing of this, that pain and that hurt and the detrimental things that we were doing, not only to our physical bodies, but to our spiritual selves, our spiritual life.
things that we did. Church, don't ever forget that. Remember the things that Jesus has brought you from. Don't forget that. Because we were once that callous too. Here's the thing. That callousness causes other things to happen. You see, because of that callousness, because of that non-feeling, there's no pain, there's no remorse, there's no anything to that. The Ephesians in the world, they give themselves up. It says they give themselves over. And what that really and truthfully means is this, is that there's a word for when you are taken prisoner, when you're taken captive, and you have an authority over you, and that authority gives you over to another authority. And that person or persons or group of people were able to do whatever they wanted. You see, because of the callousness that the world has, because of the callousness that the Ephesians had, because of the things that were going on in their life, and they had no concept of God whatsoever, and so does our world, church. They have no concept of God. They give themselves over. They surrender it over. You see, that same word is used about Jesus. When he gave himself over for us. When he gave himself to the world on our behalf. See, he surrendered all. He held nothing back for us. But you see, that's what happens to the world. They hold nothing back because of their callousness. Because of that non-feeling, they don't feel that pain, that sin. Here, I'm just going to give myself over to it. I'm going to totally surrender to it. I'm just going to give it all. And that's a bad place to be. When you no longer think about the things that are wrong. When you no longer have a conscious thought of, hey, this could be detrimental to me, to somebody else, but you don't even care. That was the problem with the Ephesians. They didn't care. They just gave themselves over. They gave themselves over to sin. And this way of life. It says, they became callous and gave themselves over to promiscuity. And that's an interesting word there. We see that as something that is horrible, and it is. It is. You see, that word there means a lack of being content. Not content. You see, the Greeks use that as a sexual deviation. What it was. Well, what it really and truthfully is. That's why it says promiscuity. You see, we try to clean things up a little bit. We can't. We need to know the heaviness and the gravity of what this situation is. You see, sometimes in church we just like to gloss things over and then, oh, it's all pretty and clean. Listen, church, there's nothing clean and pretty about it. There's nothing clean and pretty about this world. And the people that are stuck living in it because they can't see, they don't know, and they become callous. There's nothing pretty about it, church. But we just want to read it and gloss it over and here you go. But it's that sexual sin that they just give themselves over to. And that was the main thing that the Greeks used that word for. But it was more than just that. It was just this disposition of the soul that resents all discipline. They didn't want to have discipline in their lives. They didn't have it. There was no self-control. You see, I love that. That illustration that Andrea gave. That it's just This lack of self-control that the world had. Because here's the thing, it's not just how, okay, yeah, I can keep from eating cake, or I can keep, listen, it's the things in the life that they're into, it's the sin, and it's not just talking about, oh, look, these little white lies and listen, this all sin, but it's just the evilness of this world. Listen, it's always been there. It's been there since Adam. It's just this evil intent. And here's the thing. We're like, oh no, it's not close to us. Oh, it's not next door. Oh, it's not around us. Listen, there is evil all around you, church. It's there. You can't gloss it over. But you know what? It's people that need Jesus just as much as we did. And just as much as we do. You see, this wasn't just something that had popped up in their life. It had come from Adam. It's that perfect tense there in the Greek. It is something that happened in the past that continues on for generation after generation after generation. And you know what? It doesn't end. It just continuously happens. It's just that attitude of the soul and that deprivation of the heart that they don't have any kind of thoughts about the sin and the life that they're in. It's just horrible. Why? Because there is a lack of self-control. Why? Because they have just surrendered everything. They have given it all. There's nothing that is held back. That's heavy. For me, church, that's heavy. See, they became callous and gave themselves over to promiscuity for the practice of every kind of impurity. You think about this. We're constantly telling our kids to practice, aren't we? Whether it's band, music, baseball, softball, swim, their schoolwork, oh, they practice schoolwork, right? We're constantly telling them to practice. Why? Because we've always heard this saying, well, practice makes perfect, right? We've always heard that. Practice. Well, you think about this too. We practice things as adults. Oh, we go to work. That's practice. You practice your thing. This word there is like this. It's like a craft or a business. They made it their business. They made it their craft. If you talk to somebody, when you think of somebody that's an artisan or a craftsman, you think of somebody that has spent hours and years and multitudes of time spent honing the skills to become the very best that they could be. Or this is my business. I'm going to build this business up, and this is my business, and I'm going to sit there and do whatever I can to make it the best and the greatest that I could possibly do. Guess what? They made it their business. They have spent years crafting every kind of impurity. Wow. Crafting. Made it their business. They got up every morning seeking to do more evil, to do more. And as I was reading and studying, I came across this. It was like, okay, hey, you want to go paint the town red on Friday night? Well, guess what? On Saturday night, you've got to go and you've got to get a bigger bucket of red paint and a bigger paintbrush. That's what they were looking at. They made it their business. We've got to do more and bigger and better. And it says, with every kind of impurity. And that word there is this uncleanness. But you think about this. As a medical term, it was like this. You're talking about impurity, and I'm sorry, but this is, as a medical term, this is what I said it was. It was like having a wound that was unclean, that was infected, that had pus and filth and nastiness coming out of it. And not only out of it, but it had gathered stuff around it. That's putridness. That's the impurity. They had made it their business to get into every kind of putridness. Church, look at the world around you. Oh, we think everything is nice and pretty and clean, and we can gloss it all over in our mind. But you know what? It's not like that. Our world, we think it's getting worse and worse. Listen, there's nothing new under the sun. It is full of putrid nastiness. The filth. It's gross when you get to think about it. It almost makes you sick at your stomach. It's just not hidden. Oh, we used to keep it hidden. We used to keep it down. Oh, that's not acceptable. You know what? We have made it publicly acceptable to do all this stuff. We've made it publicly acceptable to just be out in the open about all these different things, all these different sins, and it just goes on, and it just is an oozing sore, church. And it's gathering filth. That's nasty. But don't forget, we were once there. We were once there, don't forget. It says, with the practice of every kind of impurity, or the desire for more and more. In some of your versions may say greediness. That's a desire for more and more. You think about, we think of people being greedy. It's just this, well, I'm greedy because I like stuff. When we think of monetary stuff, when we think of physical things, they wanted more and more evil. See, Ephesus was an evil place. Ephesus was a horrible place. They kept devising things that were just worse and worse and worse, and they wanted more and more. Sounds like our world does. Our world just keeps thinking of things, and we think it's getting worse and worse and worse and worse, and they just keep grinding it in and bringing in the putridness, bringing in the filth, bringing in the nastiness to this putrid, nasty sore. And it's not like, let's get this cleaned up. No, it's not. They have a desire for more and more and more of it. They can't get enough of the filth. They can't get enough of the evil. They can't get enough, and it just snowballs. Church, that's horrible. That is the condition of our world that we live in. That was once our condition. That's what we used to look like, church. But only by the grace of God and His mercy are we clean. Only because of what Jesus did on the cross, and He gave His all, can we be made clean. Only because of what Jesus did for us, going to the depths, coming out victorious, are we able to say, I was once there. Now I'm not. I was once in that filthy, nasty putridness. And now I've got a new goal in life. I don't desire the evil of this world. I'm not greedy for it. I'm greedy for time with God. I desire for the things of Him. Church, that ought to be the desire of our life, that we want more and more and more of Him. Less of this world. Church, let us never forget that we were once there, once darkened. once had futility of the mind, uselessness. Church, we were once just like them, just like the world. Church, we're no longer like that. And Paul's telling us, guess what? Don't go back to it. Don't turn around. Don't walk down that path. Don't have that mindset anymore. Listen, when you became Jesus, when you belong to Him, guess what? You no longer have that mind. You no longer have that mindset. He has changed you. Let us live like that. I'll end with this. And this is a second-hand story. I can't claim this one. Okay? In 1972, my father-in-law was working with a church in Bonham, Texas. He lived 80 miles away in Dallas, was working and doing, but God had called him to this church, and he was working with his church. And on Saturdays, he would go out visiting, go out evangelizing. He'd stop by people's houses, knock on their doors, tell them about Jesus. One Saturday, he knocked on this door. A young lady came to the door. He talked to her. Said, "Hey, do you know Jesus?" "No, I don't know Jesus." He talked to her a little bit. "Why don't you come to church? Invite her to your church. Share the gospel with her." "I'm not interested." He turned and walked away. He got all the way to the car. God wouldn't let him leave. He turned around, went back up to the door, knocked on the door. A young lady came. He said, "Listen, God won't let me leave." Told her about the gospel again. Shared Jesus to her. Wonderful, marvelous grace of God. "I'm not interested. I'm not interested." She closed the door. He walked away. But when he walked away, he couldn't even get to the car. Turned around again. God turned him around. And went back to the door. She'd opened the door, and there's a screen door between him and her, and she's crying. He's like, "Listen, God won't let me leave." He tells her about Jesus, invites her to church. She tells him, "Listen, I hear what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. I know I need that. I know I need Jesus. But I've got a date at the dance hall tonight. I've got to go one more time. I want to go have some fun. I want to go enjoy myself. Come back and see me next Saturday. Come back and see me next Saturday. And I'll do it then. I've still got some fun I want to have. But I'll do it then. You come and see me, and we'll sit down, and we'll talk, and I'll come to church. It'll be fine. It'll be great, and we'll go about it then." Father-in-law. He went and told the pastor, "Listen, hey, I've got somebody, talk to them. They want to know Jesus. They said, come see him next week." He was excited. Coming next Saturday, they came down. And he was so excited. Hey, I'm going to get to go visit. I'm going to get to go see. I'm going to go talk to that lady. She was so interested. She was ready. She was right there at the brink. And his pastor said, you know what? You haven't heard it. He said, I've heard what? She was brutally murdered in her home last Saturday night. Church, that is the world that we live in. It wants to put it all. Put it all. And it has become so callous to sin that's in their life. They just want more of it. More of it. More of it. Jesus can prick their heart. The Holy Spirit can touch their heart and push it away. So now, I need one more chance to have some fun. And I don't know. Only God knows whether she went out partying that night or if she broke down and accepted Jesus that evening. I don't know. Church, don't let us just give up. You better be sensitive to the Holy Spirit in your life. When God calls you back to that person, no, you turn around and you go back. No, you turn around and you go back. Even if it takes you 3 times or 100 times, you be sensitive. You don't. But there is a time when they will just be given over to their sin. They will just be given over their heart hardened and their life callous. They just surrender everything to the filth, the putrid nastiness of this world. And their desire for more and more and more of it. You know what? It may cost them their very life. It may cost them forever. Church, that is the gravity of the world that you're living, that I'm living. And that's why it's so important for us to be going throughout our daily lives. Tell them the wonderful, matchless grace of Jesus that they need. As they come for invitation this morning, my question for you is this. Are you slipping back into that world? Have you turned around to look back? Or have you got your eyes focused on Jesus, focused on what He has for you, on the work that He has given you? Are you going back to people once, twice, 3 times to spread His gospel, His love, His grace? Are we doing what He's called us to? Are we going into that kind of work where He can do His work in their lives? Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I just come before you right now. Lord, I just want to praise you, and Lord, I just want to thank you for your word and the message that you have through your word. Lord, I just praise you, Lord, I just thank you for all that you continue to do in our lives here, Lord. But Lord, I just pray that you just continue to help us to see what we have come out of. Lord, help us never to forget the putrid nastiness that we once wallowed in. But Lord, help us to see that there are those out there that need you just like we need you. Lord, help us to see and to know you each and every day. Lord, help us to dig deeper into your word. Help us to dig deeper into the relationship that we have with you. Help us to keep our eyes focused on you and focused building your body. Lord, we love you. Lord, we praise you for all things.